meeting started at 7:01. Meeting everybody. Would you like to give us your name for the minutes?
My name is Ed McGavin.
All right. Roll call. Marion Ponder, Judy Murphy,
Here,
Peggy Richards,
here,
Mark Figueroa,
here,
Coleman,
here.
Schultz. Oral communications. Is your mic on, Ellen? Oh,
Thank you very much. Anybody in the committee has some oral communication points? Okay, Nona?
I have two things to share. One is that Bev Lipman and Dana Breen and I are coordinating to plant Poppy Corner this year. And that will involve, well, Dana has already talked to the Priory to get soil, to put soil down on top of brown paper. And then she has a source for chips to go on top of the soil, and then it will be seeded with poppy seed. So if anyone wants to help with putting down the brown craft paper, spreading the soil, or spreading the chips, let me know and I will sign you up. We don't know when it'll be yet because we don't know when the soil is available. And that's sort of the rate limiting step at this point. But Dana made contact and they're very enthusiastic apparently.
Where is it, the location?
Poppy Corner, the corner of Alpine and Portola
Ah.
Road,
And
The
do we-
little,
the Triangle Park.
Yeah, the corner triangle. Do we have permission from Public Works?
I think Bev has talked to them, but I'm not, she talked to them about it in some way. I don't know exactly yet. Okay, and then number two, Detrichia is really getting to be a problem. And as you're all seeing, I'm sure. So I did contact Stanford about Portola Terrace and the wedge, because you've probably seen that there's really a lot. And I heard back, I'll read you what they said. That site is scheduled for some weed abatement in the near future. It is under Stanford Real Estate Management, and they have some stinkwort removal activities coming up. They will, and the wedge is on the target list. So I will stay in touch with them if I can. It's a really big job this year, but now is the year to get it.
well, thank you. When you're talking to them, you might want to mention the dish as well. I know it's not in our town, but when you're talking to Stanford, you might
Yeah,
as well.
they know about that.
The thing is, from my experience, when they do the dish, they do it so late in the year. And then they have an expensive crew out there that actually goes in with the shovel and takes it all out, but it's already blooming and seeding. So if they could do it a month earlier, it would be more effective.
And that's what I told them.
Thank you.
I said, if
Thank
you
you
can do
very
it
much.
now before it's in bud,
Yeah.
you know, it'll be fast and easy and you can just mow it with a really big mower. That'll really do a lot. They're not going to go in and hand pull. So
No, they don't need
Yeah.
to. Yeah. Does anybody have an idea what we can do when a neighbor has an incredible infestation but does nothing? No idea, right? I don't.
I've had two neighbors with massive infestation, so it's, yeah. I talked to both of them, nothing happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Thank
think the
you for
most you can do
enlightening.
is, I think the most you can do is in a friendly way, bring it to their attention. There are a few people who actually don't know. And their mow and blow gardeners don't know, so
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to do a kind neighborly. One of the things I see is that there are areas in town where it's in the right of way. And so the person who lives there might consider taking it out, but there's this, thing about you can't work in the right of way
Mm.
without permission that gets in the way. So I don't know whether at some point in time we should look into that and see if we could find a way to smooth that for certain things or on certain, twice a year for
Yeah.
certain reasons. Get a dispensation from Public Works and take care of your tricky a day.
The thing is, if you get it before it blooms, you can actually get rid of it.
I understand.
And
I
it's so
understand.
sad.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big, we might actually do some more PV forum or something, keep going to get to as many people as possible. Okay. Any other oral communication from the committee? If not, I don't see anybody. Oh, David is here. Andrew is here. Doesn't seem to. Okay. David Cardinal and Andrew's iPad. All right, committee business. Actually, I have a lot of committee business. The first, sorry, I do that every time. Approval of minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look at them?
I read them and move we approve them as written.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
I,
Thank you. Committee business. So the first point of committee business, remember last month we discussed to ask Eliza Lowe if she wants to become a student member, and she is very happy to become a student member. So I think we need to have a motion and to vote her onto the committee as a student member.
So,
You have a motion, make a motion,
Yes.
okay?
So Marianne, this is an exception, is that right?
No,
to-
I'm doing committee business.
No, I understand, but when we get on the committee, it's through the.
It's different, yeah, because she's a student. Yes, it's a
Okay.
different situation.
I think it's sort of honorary.
Yeah, honorary,
Yeah.
exactly. See, she's an honorary student member. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I can add her to the distribution list. Okay, second point, does the committee want to be in any way contributing to the picnic? Do we want to have a booth? It is on 9/20, the town picnic.
Absolutely. I think we should. We
Okay.
always have.
Okay, who is willing to drive it?
I'm can't this year because I'm having eye surgery and stuff. But
I'm sorry, I
I'm
can't hear.
happy to help. I just can't be the one who organizes it.
Okay,
It would be a shame if we didn't do it. We've always done it. We have the banner, we have the stuff, we have the,
Okay, let me
Yeah.
ask you, who is able to come and do a shift? 3 of us. No, Dieter?
No.
Okay, I guess that would work.
so Yogi might, Yogi often,
Who?
Yogi.
Oh, Yogi, yeah, he
Right.
might if he's in town, yeah. Okay, well then I guess I'll drive it and Judy will help.
Yeah, I'll help you.
Okay, all right. And then you might have seen it's sort of committee business. Do we want to advertise that Post is doing a Zoom on 8/28 Living with Coyotes? Do we want to do anything with that? It's a Zoom. They have I got an email. Post is doing a video Living with Coyotes. Do we want to in any way tell the town that that's happening? Is that interesting to us, or do we not want to do anything?
I think if it's not happening in some other way, we should, but it might be even on the town, the weekly thing that comes out, they often
I'll
post
check.
about other things.
On 8/28 at 7 PM.
Which is Thursday of
Very
this
soon.
week.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 days from now, so
Do we
we
want
could
to?
do something on the
Let's put something on the forum. Okay. All right.
they come to my place every night.
Well, they come to mine either as well. Then the other point, so remember a few months ago, we discussed changing the meeting time. And we were discussing a window between 5 and 7. And Megan said the earliest she can is 5:30, right? Yogi said the earliest he can is 5:30. So also in light that Eliza is at a boarding school on the East Coast, And the reason why she's not here today, although she's on the agenda, she has lights out. So, but that's just a side thing.
So I didn't so I want to go backwards a little bit. I didn't realize she wasn't in town. So if
No.
she's not here,
Well, she works. She wrote the article then last week for me. She's
But-
working. She's working.
but that was when she was at Menlo
No,
School.
no, it's a new article. No. She has been at the boarding school for quite a while. But she's still working with us.
You
and she-
said back east.
Yeah, she's back east. She wouldn't have been coming in person probably anyway. So with Zoom, I don't see why that is a problem. If she can, if we have a time, but that's not going to drive it. Okay. I was working with her the last month in a follow-up article, and she's very responsive. So she is so interested in working with us. She doesn't physically have to be here. Yeah. So coming back to the 5:30, I would really be very happy if we could do 5:30. And I'll tell you my reasoning. When I have a meeting like that, I'm chairing at 7. I have a real bad day the next day because I can't unwind. It's too late. So that's one reason. Another reason is I think we would get more possibly guests or staff if we want to invite people. And I think Teresa, you said you would be okay with 5:30.
So my issue with 5:30 with our meetings is the finance committee meets at 4.
Yeah, I get to that point.
And that might create
Yes.
a rather.
That would. And so my
friction.
next point is if we are all in agreement on 5:30, then I was going to suggest, what about we move it to the first Tuesday instead of the third Tuesday? Would that make a big difference? It makes no difference to me if it's a third or a first Tuesday.
If, as I remember, our primary goal in doing this was talking about having it so that we could have staff. And
5:30.
once we're after 5, then they're doing overtime, et cetera, anyway. So I'm not sure it gains us as much in terms of staff as we might hope for. I think, yeah, finance is an issue.
Finance is an issue, but I looked at the schedule, and so the first Tuesday of the month is completely open, and the second Tuesday of the month is what is that committee that never meets?
Race and
Equity.
Race and
Yeah,
equity.
but I don't want to. They start at 7 on the second Tuesday, and I don't want to step over them just because they never meet doesn't mean that they might not meet in the future. So if everybody can do the first Tuesday of the month, it just would be better because then we are not in any way pushed by the finance committee because they might run over once in a while.
That works for me.
Okay. Megan, you said it works for you.
I worry a little bit about people in town and be interested to know, of the guests, either here or online, because I think
Let me
people who work, might find it much easier to make even 6 than 5:30. They have, their work ends at 5, they have to get home.
Well, I looked at committee starting times. A lot of committee starting times are like 9 in the morning. Some are at 5.
I understand.
And I don't think any other committee other than, ASCC or town council is that late. So as the other committees are all basically earlier, I don't see how that would be a problem.
Except some committees don't care whether there are residents there or not, and we've encouraged people
Well, let's
to
ask Dave.
come. Yeah.
Let's ask. him.
So, Marianne,
Yes.
just to be clear, and my understanding is, and Rebecca, you can clarify this for me, please. It's not up to us. I mean, we can make a suggestion, but we have to go to the town council and
Absolutely.
they have to approve it all.
Yeah.
And just as you, I'm sure already checked, there are several committees that are at 7 o'clock, 7:30, et cetera, aside from us.
Like,
Race and equity, parks and recreation. I'm just looking at the town calendar.
Parks and Recs is on Zoom, actually. I don't think they meet in person, as far as I remember.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a question if, I understand. So in my opinion, let's, David,
Uh,
can you give us some feedback how you feel?
Yeah, sure. First of all, my schedule is basically chaos. So I attend when I can. Honestly, if it was up to me, I would say it's up to you. Like whatever works for the members of the committee, you're the ones who put the time in. Um, whatever works for you, I think is
Okay.
honestly the best, is what I would say.
Okay, thank you. So bringing it back to the discussion. So Dieter is okay.
It's okay.
So,
No difference between.
yeah. And I would certainly be less tired.
Other things.
Yeah, you're less tired if you start at 5:30 than when you start at 7.
That's okay. So we're basically doing it primarily for you, which is fine with me. I can do that.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, you're doing it for me. to
if we
some
have
degree.
another chair for whom that's not an issue, then
You can
we
always
go
change it
back. I
when
mean, I
I'm
don't know.
tired.
I don't know. Yeah.
And yes, so the process is, we need to decide that that's what we want to do. And then I'll take it to the town and ask.
Of course, there's a
That's
process,
the
right.
process. But I don't see why they would say anything. Yeah. So do we need a motion?
Absolutely.
Can I hear a motion?
I move that we ask the town council to reschedule our meeting to the first Tuesday of the month at 5:30.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
I
Thank you very much. Highly appreciated. Okay. Then I have 2 updates, which are committee business. One, I had a really good meeting with Elizabeth on the website. And when we get to the agenda, the link to the mountain lion educational video is already up. And she has the tree removal document. I assume she will have to go through some process. What I want to bring back from that meeting, there we have a lot of flexibility. She showed to me what she can do with changing. So as long as it looks the way it looks, we have a lot of flexibility, changing headlines, moving stuff up, moving stuff down, and she can act relatively quickly for simple stuff. Obviously, if it's something with an ordinance, it's going to be. So I wanted to share that good news. And then the last thing I have to share is I met with Darcy, the town manager, and we had we had an intensive, full 1-hour meeting, and it was really good. She was telling us she would give us an intern, Duncan, Patty Dew's son, Duncan. He, in a month or so, could start doing mapping for us for the wildlife corridor. So she's supporting of that. Then I mentioned, because now legally we can do it with the new law to have an ordinance for PV rat poison free. And she would support that. And she suggested that we work with Woodside. And then I gave her the update that actually we were ahead of Woodside and Woodside got the data. And so, but we can certainly work with Woodside. Yeah. Duncan, Dew's, Patty Dew's son. Oh, sorry, Duncan Askey. Sorry. Talking about, that's good. Let me just look what else. And then we can talk about that when it comes to the agenda. She thought the idea that we do this community project for inventorying birds and nests and what have you, she thought it was a real good idea. And she said, maybe we want to call Stanford. She said, do a cold call. And I said, yeah, I can do a cold call, get an intern. So, this is just, she had lots of ideas and she was supportive. So I went out of this meeting very positively motivated. And I want to share that with you. And then she mentioned that, Julia mentioned that we did this checklist for the event. And she said, no, we didn't overstep at all. She's very happy about that. And she will ask Corey to meet with us on that and finish that. And then mentioned that we wanted to meet with Robert Burt, and she was going to set that up. So then that we can explain to him because he doesn't know yet. And I explained to Darcy that we know when the weeds are coming up and we can be a good resource. So that's going to happen too. All right, that's the committee business. Now let's go to the old business. The ADU checklist, I understand that Dieter and Megan volunteered for that last time. Is that correct? I had this from in my notes. No, maybe not.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay, so was something different. Anyway, it's I haven't done anything on, so we'll talk about that another time. Next one, wildlife corridor, our fence ordinance, and I would like to give this over to Nona, who has it on the computer and has done a lot of work with that in terms of putting it into the computer. We all have done a lot of thinking in our subcommittee meetings. And that refers to the appendices A, B, and C, which you got in the agenda.
I'm going to see if it'll share. Let me try again.
Okay, let me see if I need to do. Double click to enter full screen. That's you, right? That's you. I did.
Okay.
I made her co-host.
Okay, I don't. Megan, do you know why this isn't sharing? No.
It says it started screen sharing, double click to enter full screen mode.
Time. So we're going to share. This is what I want to share. Okay. Share.
That is your computer.
It's saying it's slow to load because it's showing that you're.
This is I think this is now your computer. Just wait for loading.
All right.
While
Well,
we're-
let me give an introduction while we see if that'll come up. Does it say? Yeah, it says sharing. Okay. So the fence ordinance. The fence ordinance is complicated, as we on the subcommittee have discovered repeatedly. And we have made multiple attempts to suggest modifications in it, which would achieve the goal of providing better access for wildlife to things like stream corridors and ravines, the places that are their habitat and their major corridors to other open space areas. Right now, the impediment to that is really the fact that parcels that are 1 acre to 2 acres are allowed to have domestic fences 6 feet tall on their side and rear property lines. Now, if I could get this to share, I don't understand why it's not. Let me try one more time. Maybe I can ask someone else to share. Sometimes it just does it. This is annoying.
It
Maybe.
it thought you were sharing, but is there like one more click where you have to say which screen maybe, or?
Application. I don't know. Yeah, so let me I'm going to give someone else the document and see if you can share it maybe. Can I do that? Do you guys mind?
To Megan?
Isn't this what was in the agenda?
It's pretty much,
Okay.
not exactly, but so I'll just go ahead for now and I'll stop sharing and then I'll try again later. So again, this is our third iteration on this. The first iteration, we thought we might include 1 acre parcels, the smallest acreage unit in the fence ordinance that is less than 1 acre. And we also thought about what we might do with the larger parcels, the over 2 acre parcels. we realized that that was trying to do too much and some of it was totally unnecessary. So in the current version, what we're trying to do is focus on the 1 acre parcels and modify the fence ordinance to include one other fence category, and that is called wildlife-friendly fences. The way it would work is that the setbacks on the 1 acre parcels are the required yard is 20 feet in on the side and in the back. And what we're thinking of is saying that you can put a domestic fence 10 feet in from the property line in those areas, leaving the front setback at the existing 25 feet. And this would give people the opportunity to fence out animals that they don't want in their yard, or to fence in dogs or protect kids or whatever it is. We want this to work for the security reasons that people have for having a domestic fence, but also try and provide basically alleys between yards so that they can weave their way over to stream corridors and, say, ravines. And so the modifications, they're really, if you can look at the diagram that has 3 panels showing horse fences, domestic fences, and wildlife-friendly fences. I'm really sorry that the sharing's not working. The only change in the horse fence, which as it shows in this image, is allowed on all property lines in this category of parcels, the 1 acre parcels, is that we're asking that there be no wire or anything within 16 inches of the ground. So anyone can put a horse fence on their property line, the entire property line. The domestic fence, as I said, would be set back 10 feet on the side and rear yards, and as it is currently, 25 feet in the front. It could still be 6 feet, and it could still be a solid fence. And the reason for that is that if it's 10 feet in, that allows the corridor outside it. There's a third category of fence, though, and that's what we're calling the wildlife-friendly fence. It would be a maximum of 4 feet high. It would have 16 inches of clearance above the ground, and it could go where the domestic fences are currently allowed. That is, it could be on the side and rear property lines and 25 feet in at the front. The idea being that some people just want a fence to mark the perimeter of their property. And if you have a wildlife-friendly fence, it would accomplish that just as a horse fence would. And in fact, a horse fence could be viewed as a subset of wildlife-friendly fences. And some people wouldn't want anything more than that. But if they did want a 6-foot fence for, say, their dogs or their kids or for whatever, they could do that at 10 feet in from the property line. So there's some nuances there, of course. There's already a bigger setback at creeks for properties that back onto creeks or have the side on a creek, and also where slopes are really steep. But still, what we're talking about is sort of creating porosity, is what we're calling it, so that animals can kind of weave their way over to their prime habitat. So maybe I'll let everyone else talk now, and I'll try one more time to share. There's another illustration in this packet that shows it on a larger scale. And what I did actually, if I can bring up my PowerPoint, is show you a little bit more cleanly what we mean. So I'll be quiet now and let other people talk.
Some comments?
I'll make a brief comment, and that is that I was on the subcommittee, and one of our concerns is the way the ordinance currently reads, where the domestic fences have to be set back in the front, but not on the rear and sides, that if the town were to be totally built out legally, according to the current ordinance, really the only place the wildlife could go would be in the streets and along the creeks. We felt the need to try to get ahead of the development that may be happening out here so that as there's more development and as new people buy in and want more privacy and want to put in fences that really stop everything, that we protect the ability of the local wildlife to move through town. And we didn't do less than 1 acre because those plots are so small that if you start doing this, you really encroach on the homeowner's ability to do what they want with their land. And we felt like that was a little draconian. And the more than 2 acres already say that that a horse fence can go on the property line, but nothing other than that. So the larger properties are sort of already taken care of. And many of the larger properties choose not to fence, which is why it's so beautiful when you drive through the streets, but they don't have to do that. And our concern was that increasingly they won't choose to do that. So we need to build in some protections because more development is almost inevitably coming.
Megan, do you have some comments?
Yeah, I would add that also in the spirit of recognizing that people may have alternatives to provide that porosity to wildlife. They may be interested in creating larger areas of habitat and not just these narrow corridors. We do have an allowance for a case review where if a homeowner proposes a layout of fencing that doesn't exactly match the ordinance, but would result in equal or better porosity based on the layout of adjacent fences and other conditions, that would be open for review.
Teresa?
Well, I'm going to bring up the same points that I've brought up every single time that have not still been either heard or addressed. 10 feet to me is absolutely overboard. For many properties, it's probably fine. This affects every single property of 1 to 2 acres in Portola Valley. It doesn't matter that there may already be a fence on those properties per the requirements and the ordinance. If a fence is knocked down, fails, whatever, and the homeowner chooses to replace it, they must go through and get permits and do all of that. And this would directly impact all of those properties. What you're basically talking about is setting up a 20-foot wide corridor in all situations with exceptions requiring, variances, et cetera, which fine, that maybe that there's a provision for that. But I have said it every single time. I think the purpose of what we're trying to do is to put in the fencing ordinance, which actually is already in the fencing ordinance, but to make it stronger, that what we want to be encouraging is wherever possible, existing wildlife corridors or opportunities for wildlife movement be maintained, which I completely agree with. 10 feet seems a bit excessive to me, since the setback for a building, if I recall correctly, is 20 feet. So basically what you're saying is you're taking half of the yard away from structures, existing structures in particular, by requiring a fence be moved if, for example, it gets old and it falls down, et cetera. The other concern I have is I'm not sure where the 16 inches came on the horse fence. I've certainly never heard of that as a magic number. It may be okay. I'm going to go home and measure mine. I didn't think to do it before I came, but I have a feeling that most of mine are not 16 inches above the ground on the bottom. So that that also might be a little excessive. I mean, realistically, I've watched dogs, coyotes go under the existing deer. I've watched the deer go under the bottom rail on our corral because they were too lazy to walk around the bottom where it's completely open. They said, no, I want to go right here, and without any problem whatsoever. So I'm a little sensitive about that. And I just want the committee to keep in mind that what's being proposed affects existing properties in addition to trying to preserve future, in the instance of future development, what's there. So I'm very troubled.
Thank you. One of the things I can share, we were out at a 0.93 acres property. It was a site review, and they have an orchard. So it's less than an acre. It's just an example of sort of how I see how the town seems to react. We said, how would you feel pulling your orchard fence back so that you open up a wildlife corridor? And they said, oh, yeah, we'd be happy to do that. So I looked, for example, in the Shawnee Pass, in the classic 1 acre neighborhood. I looked what sort of fences people had been building lately. And it's actually interesting, if you really look, these are 4-foot fences. I have the feeling from having looked around and from talking to people when a tree gets cut down or when something else is happening, that there is actually a groundswell of support for this. And obviously a 4-foot fence doesn't have to be 10 feet back. It's only the 6-foot fence that has to be 10 feet back. You're aware of this, right?
I'm,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I
Yes,
just wanted
but
to
in
check.
the instance where there's an existing 6-foot fence that goes along the property lines and it comes down. And so, for example, if someone has sight hounds for, just let's say, that require 4-foot fence, see ya.
No, we understand. We understand. I'm just
I get it.
making a comment that I have seen a real positive. It's actually, it's happening in town already. That's all I want to say. There are some hands. Are we ready to have some hands, or are we still
Let me
discussing?
just add for some of Teresa's other questions. The 16-inch gap is a wildlife friendly fence, kind of typical criteria that it does allow a passage of deer and other wildlife. So that's where that came from. We're not making it up. We're basing it off of Natural Resource Conservation Service, other guidelines from wildlife ecologists. And the 10-foot setback was a nod to the fact that using a full required yard setback, which is 20 feet, would be extremely onerous. And that added together, you get the 20 feet, which is also based on reports that we found from wildlife ecologists, wildlife behavior, finding that somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 feet is appropriate for passage of deer in particular, that they wouldn't avoid going through a narrow, or they might avoid going through a narrow passage.
Okay, and I just want to clarify, I'm not talking about the 16 inches when you're talking about the wildlife friendly fencing on the perimeter necessarily. I'm talking about, this is horse fencing in Portola Valley, and it doesn't make an exception if, for example, my corral, which is 50 feet in from the property lines, what you're saying is that anyone who has a paddock on their property that is not on the property line is going to have the 16-inch thing. That's what I was referring to. That's all.
I don't think that's true. If it's pulled back in within,
I'm reading it, Judy. It's right here. Horse fence standards shall not be within 16 inches.
right, no, so that's if you have the horse fence that's on the perimeter. If you choose, but wait, if you choose to have a fence, you say just arbitrarily 30 feet back, and you want it for a paddock, it's at that point, it's a domestic fence. So it can be anything, it can be anything you want.
Yeah.
You may design it as a quote horse fence, but you can go in, back in there, you can go all the way to the ground. Because
Yeah, you
back
can
in
do
there,
whatever you want.
a domestic fence is by definition, any fence that's not within that 10-foot setback we're proposing. And if you call it, if you call it a horse fence and go down that line, but it's really, it's a domestic fence. So, I mean,
Yeah, no,
you
I
guys
think
who
you're
are on the
absolutely right.
subcommittee agree with
Yeah,
me? It
yeah.
can be it can be opaque, it just can't be more than 6 feet tall. That's the only restriction. And actually, as you get in, is there a restriction on height? There
No,
still is.
No, if
You can
if
be
you're
8 feet
envelope or
inside.
You can go 10, 14 feet.
Is that accurate? That you can go 10 feet inside the building envelope?
I've seen it. I've
It-
seen it.
It's a valid point that we didn't read it specifically for, and this is where we've gotten ourselves tangled up in the ordinance a number of times. And no, I think it's worth
Yeah,
reviewing to make sure that it is clear, what
Right.
our interpretation is clear.
yeah, because that's not the intention at all. And
Understood.
ideally we can word it so it doesn't create that. Yeah, because that's an excellent point and not what we were trying to do. It was at the property line and within there to 10 feet that we need that we're recommending that we have the bottom accessibility and the shortened heights.
So maybe we should add horse fences that are on the property line or within 10 feet of it need to have the
We can
clearance.
clarify
Right.
that.
Just-
Right.
Yeah,
Just
good
because
point.
that might be a common concern
Mm-hmm.
or,
Yeah.
confusion.
Well, and I think one of the problems we've run across when we've tried to design this thing and write it is some of the words are talking about the structure and some of the words are talking about the location. And in the case of a horse-friendly fence, when people hear it, they think anything around, made for horses. But in fact, if this were to go into place, anything further away from the property line than 10 feet is by definition a domestic fence, even if you build a horse fence. So you don't have those requirements.
Well, I don't read it that way. But,
I mean, we need to change the language so that you
I'm
can
just
read it.
looking
So
at what the
yeah.
ordinance says. And
Yeah.
as a horse owner, when I went to go to the town to try to get, my corrals and what have you, this is where I went to find out what I was supposed to do. And is it actually appropriate for horses? Not anymore. But that's a totally different subject and I'm not asking us to consider it because I think what we're trying to do here is help preserve wildlife corridors in town, which I fully support, but I'm very uncomfortable. And I've said it every single time.
The problem we ran into, and we took this to ASCC once, is when you start, it's as complex as it is trying to do it via the fence definitions. It's even harder to do if you leave out the fences and just talk about wildlife corridors, because then they start asking for maps of where the wildlife corridors are. Well, in fact, the animals move anywhere in town that they can. Everywhere in town, unless there are fences prohibiting it, are wildlife corridors. So it's a fool's errand to try to map the wildlife corridors. We came up against that and you literally can't. It's all the streets and all the creeks and, everywhere there's not a fence. And so that becomes a foolish unmap kind of, yeah.
Should we?
But we need to take care of that.
Okay.
It's not fine. We need to take care of it. We just have to get the language right so it's clearer.
I think it's really important to emphasize that we recognize that every property is unique and the owners have specific interests and needs. And so that's why we have the provision in there that there can be an exception for people who qualify, for other reasons with equivalent habitat or some other consideration that justifies an exception.
Okay. All right. David, I think you had your hand up.
I do. I want to take a step back and say that the whole wildlife corridor thing sort of bugs me because if you're building apartment buildings between two wildlife complexes, fine. But all of our town is wildlife habitat. And we have people complaining every 2 hours on TV Forum about rats or this or that, because, we need to have wildlife. And so I'd actually be much more, I don't know, aggressive in my statement that, hey, you live here because of the wildlife. You need to share your property with them or move. I don't know. I mean, so as far as the fencing, yeah, like for Teresa, I mean, horse fencing plus or minus, unless you put barbed wire in, is great. And maybe it's 16 inches, maybe not. The point is a deer can get under, a big deer can jump over. That's not a problem. But if you're putting in fencing at your property line to deliberately not allow our natural, not just predators, but animals, you're depriving them of acres. We have 2,000 properties, let's say, at 1 to 2 acres. That's like half of our town. And we're saying, I'm sorry, you can't eat here. Fine, go to foothills, go to wherever. And then we wonder why we don't have critters. So I'm a big fan of not just corridors, but what are you trying to do? Now we have 1.5 acres. And my God, I can barely see the other side. So if we had dogs still, there's no shortage of places for them to run. Horses, I totally get, but I don't think a horse fence is a problem. Now, I get that you can't change the fence ordinance easily. And I was at the hearing where Carter Ward was whining about horses and this and that. But I think if we make it clear that the point is to let our community be wildlife friendly and not just allow them like a little, hey, little guy, you can come across my yard and go over in the back. That's not what we're about. We're going to deprive them of their food. We're going to run out of critters, and that's a slippery slope. Now, I think a lot of you probably agree with all this. But I would definitely, like the way the fire people start, like, do you want your house to burn down? I would start with, hey, do you want wildlife in this town? Here is how they work. They need forage, they need property, they need stuff. Now, I say this with some respect. I mean, I spent 20 years as a wildlife photographer around the world, so I kind of know how critters work in general. And so I applaud what you're trying to do, but I don't know. I would even, if you can, kind of take it up a level when you do a booth or something. Just don't talk about wildlife corridors. It's like, oh, there's an interstate to get me to Oakland, but it doesn't mean that the terrain between me and Oakland is friendly. So that's my rant for today. Thanks.
Thank you. We don't have anybody else. Has their hand up.
How do you propose to deal with the ADU ordinance or the ADU law that allows someone to put ADU at 4 feet from the property line, even though Portola Valley would definitely like to discourage that, but that is a law and people do have that right now to do that. So I'm just trying to figure out how this new fencing would interface with that issue.
You want to address it?
So when we originally started pursuing this topic, it was in the context of the room to roam bill and some of the loftier ideas that Dave Cardinal was mentioning. And we took this as a first step. So this does not address the issue with ADUs. I don't think we have a solution for that or even an approach yet, but we're trying to take it one piece at a time. And the hope is that this at least keeps some of that porosity open and it gives us some time to think about and encourage people to find ways to enhance habitat and address other issues like the ADUs.
Yeah, I would think. So you have your 6 foot corridor and then let's say halfway down the property is a ADU that goes out at only, that's 4 feet, I think there will be just a bottleneck. I don't see really what else there would be. It just goes then narrower because there is an ADU, and the ADU has a right to be there.
There'll be a little pinch point. Yeah, we talked about that, and really, there's nothing we can do, obviously, about the ADUs, nothing you can do. I know anybody who could do something about it would probably choose to, but basically what it would say is, then you can't fence along, you can't have your ADU out there and a fence as well, to be even more restrictive, for your neighbor and for the wildlife. So if you wanted to fence in that area, you'd have to start the fence on the inner side of the ADU instead of the outer side of the ADU. That makes sense. I don't think there's anything in here that creates a problem for that unless somebody had wanted to put a fence all around their ADU.
Any other comments?
I guess I'd just like to respond a little bit to Dave Cardinal in that, I think there's a lot of sympathy for what you're saying. Part of the reason to suggest moving to wildlife-friendly fences is that if people want to sort of mark the perimeter of their yard with a fence, I think now the default is more opaque and taller than it needs to be. And if they just switch to wildlife-friendly fences, then their property is accessible habitat. So it could work to do what you think we should. That's all.
Okay, so are we ready to make a motion?
No, I want to address Teresa's concern. And I think that one way we could reduce the confusion, make it clearer, is under 18.43 060, the section that specifically talks about horse fences and has all the restrictions on what a horse fence can be.
What page is that?
Page 7 on what I printed out.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That where it says horse fences shall conform to the following standards, somehow we put that horse fences on property lines or within 10 feet of the property line shall not be within 16 inches of the ground. So that makes clear that your horse fences within the area we're trying to protect don't have to have that. They can be, meet all these other restrictions, but the ones in the areas that we're trying to protect, property line fences and the ones within that setback, the half the side yard would have to be that distance from the, does that make sense? You think that's a way of accomplishing it?
I think part of the problem too, Judy, is that we use the term horse fence when we're actually trying to talk about wildlife appropriate fencing. And we also use horse fence when we're talking about horse fences. And so it's very confusing. I mean, if the current ordinance is very confusing, it talks about horse fences and then it says, if you're actually keeping horses inside your horse fences, well, there's other stuff you need to think about, but we're not dealing with it here. That's what the ordinance says. So it's very problematic right now that
I think that's why
and it's getting worse.
That's why we added wildlife friendly fences to try to have it be
I-
less confusing. And even though it adds another category, it enables you to have a wildlife friendly. Right now, the ordinance says you're going to have a horse fence, and then there are all these requirements about the horse fence. So if you wanted a simpler, quote, nicer, quote, different kind of fence along your perimeter that you don't want to be a horse fence, you're kind of stuck. So that's why we did wildlife friendly, because then it can be, you and your landscape architect design, as long as meets those requirements. Doesn't have to meet the requirements of a horse fence.
I have a question for you, Teresa. So if we look at your corral, how high is your corral? Is it, let me ask you that. Is it higher than 4 feet?
No,
No, it's not. Okay, okay. I was just curious.
but I think the bottom,
Because it could
I
be-
think the bottom rung is lower than 16 inches, but I don't know because I didn't think to go out and measure it. I think the bottom board is, I think, what, this is 16 inches, right? And I think mine might be about this, and depending where the hill is.
Is your concern that if you would have to change this to 16 inches, that your horse can get out? I mean, what's
I
your
don't have
cons-
foals, and so I don't have that problem. But when you have a baby horse, there's a whole other set of complexities that comes into play. And I just was curious where 16 inches came from, because it's not something I've ever heard. I understand when we're talking about along the wildlife friendly corridors, that there's a reason for that. I'm not trying to argue. I was just asking the question because, again, it has a lot more impact than you all might be thinking about. And as the only horse owner on this committee, I am very concerned when I start hearing things that affect a
So-
whole subset that's not represented here except by me, and I'm not that active in the community.
what would solve your problem specifically?
Okay, I'll try it again. That when we're talking about wildlife corridor friendly fencing, and you're talking about horse fencing in there, if 16 inches is what's appropriate in that situation, I'm pretty sure I can get okay with it. Although I do see that in many pasture horse fence situations, first of all, you don't want 3-rail wood fencing. They chew it, they break it, whatever. But that's not what the purpose of this is. But oftentimes, horse owners choose to put welded wire on the inside of their fences for a number of reasons, not the least of which is it keeps the horses from chewing the fence. And so I appreciate what you're saying. I'm just raising the issues from this small subset in our community.
So I'm thinking we can address that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there somewhere in that complicated text that you can put behind a horse fence a wire mesh?
Yes, I'm reading it, and it says, and it shall not be within 16 inches of. So, Marianne, we've spent way too long having this discussion here. I
think-
respect.
But we
that-
need to address it because we need to.
We need to
Yeah,
get it,
it's
we
8
need to
o'clock, we
fix
don't
it,
need-
but Teresa, to your point, if you have a foal, if in the property more than 10 feet back, you have a corral and you have a foal and you need to protect it, so you need it to go all the way down to the ground. You can do that because that's a domestic fence. Because it's inside the space where you can do that.
I don't think that's true, but I've been trying to find. It says a domestic fence is not a horse fence as defined, blah, blah, blah. So I think we're splitting hairs here. And I don't want to prolong this pain. anymore.
We have been working on this for a number of months, and we really are trying to get to the bottom of these different concerns. I have been a thorn in the side for the oddly shaped 1-acre lots of the group. And so I really appreciate hearing your feedback and really do want to work through it. And it sounds to me like Judy's language is important to add, that the requirement that finding the word, wire mesh shall not be within 16 inches of the ground. We need to add language that specifies that that's only within 10 feet of the property line.
Yeah, and then that makes it clear.
I also think it's really important to me. We've been working on this for a long time. We try to take things into consideration. We have heard what you've said before. We haven't blown it off. We've talked about them. And I think it's much more important for us to get it right than it is to get it done tonight. I mean, I'd like to get it done tonight. That was our assumption, but I don't want us to vote on something if there's still issues that we haven't resolved. It's not the right way for us to do it.
Absolutely.
And I have one other concern. that we didn't really address much in subcommittee because it didn't come up, and that is that there is in the ordinance under location 1843.020 on page 5. Location says, number 6 says double fencing, where 2 or more fences are placed parallel to one another, often for the purpose of deterring deer or other animals, must be located within the building envelope of a parcel. And I thought we had moved to the point philosophically in town, since these were written a long time ago, that double fencing is bad. Double fencing in any circumstance is bad. Double fencing always, catches animals, et cetera, and that you shouldn't, you can build any kind of a crazy ass fence, domestic fence you want inside, but we shouldn't allow it to be double, I believe.
As long, it could be double if one of it is 4 feet. You could have a 4 feet perimeter friendly fence, and then you have one further in. You could theoretically say this is a double fence.
Well, I don't know what the definition of double is
Right.
in terms of, and there's not a definition, so maybe that's it, but most of the doubles we see are like this width, the one fence is there, the other fence is here. And that's where, and the animals get caught in there. Somehow they get in and they can't get out.
A double fence, probably per definition, is something that's 6 foot high.
No?
No,
Not defined.
not
No, it is
defined.
not defined,
I
and that
think
is not.
We need a definition.
Okay.
Because a wildlife-friendly fence is likely to be parallel to a domestic fence if someone has a domestic fence. And so we should have some kind of a distance between them.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
And we should maybe not do that on the fly since
Right.
No,
since
I
how
agree.
difficult
I agree, 'cause
everything else has
that's
been.
gonna
But
be
I would lobby hard for getting rid of, all double fencing and, in the classic sense that we have it around town.
Yeah.
Yeah, in places. Most people don't, but a number of people still do. And it's not, the modern biologist would say it's not appropriate.
Yeah, and we can do that. Where I see double fencing is it's on the property line, and then, it's 6 feet on the property line, which is sort of illegal. In Westridge, I see it. Front, and the front, sorry. So I'm talking about the front, excuse me. And then maybe 4 feet, 5 feet in is another one. If you can't have a 6 foot fence on the property line.
Right.
Double fencing.
It's already
is
taken care of at the
going
property
away.
line because we're saying you can only have a horse fence or
Yeah.
or wildlife
Why
friendly
would
fence. Yeah. But inside,
Why would you do that?
because animals get caught in them.
No. I'm saying, why would somebody have?
You do it because that's a way to deter the deer, Marianne. How it works. The deer generally choose not to jump over 2
Right.
fences. They jump over one like this. Nobody's has an issue with that. So when you put 2 fences up, they tend not to try to go over it, but some of them do try and they get stuck.
No, I understand.
But so it happens way inside. You have a garden. You put a double fence around your garden.
Okay.
I'm saying that
Yeah, let's
since
address
you
it.
can build, a much more assertive fence there if you care to, that you shouldn't be able to do a double fence,
Okay.
I believe. And I'm happy to hear
So-
pushback.
Can we take another pass at this as a subcommittee and come
Yeah,
back to
so
it?
but I would like to, because I really want to move, not that we're voting, but I want to move forward. So, Teresa, if we when we address the 16-inch
Autumn.
bottom of the horse fence.
That was a minor comment. Go on.
What else do you?
The 10 feet, the same thing I've said over and over. The 10 feet I have a problem with
Okay, I think,
because
yeah,
it
okay.
is applicable to every single 1 to 2 acre parcel in town, existing parcels. I understand, and I firmly believe it's imperative that we do what we can to support preservation of wildlife corridors. But I'm saying that I have a problem with
Okay.
that.
So let me just say, so maybe I understand that you have a problem with the 10 feet. I don't think we, as a subcommittee, would switch on the 10 feet. I don't see how, I mean, the 10 feet is the minimum we need to have. So maybe we just have to accept that maybe we won't end up with an anonymous vote.
Unanimous.
Thank you. So we hear you, Teresa, but obviously we don't agree.
So one other question is, if we're going to go back to subcommittee, is there anything else we should be looking at?
Right.
Is there anything else in these ordinances that seem like they either need fixing, quote, or are too loose or too tight? And I mean, while we're at it, if they relate to wildlife, because that's our goal. It's not to be, just making whoopee with the fences.
I had a couple comments on that.
Mm-hmm.
So for the horse fence standards, you might just change the language saying horse fence standards for for fences on the property line or within the setback. That way it wouldn't
Right.
refer to
Yeah.
anything that's within the property. My other thing that really I think needs clarification is if you're adding these new rules for fences for 1 acre properties, you really have to think about when those get applied. So if you look under your permits and ASCC review section, it's just not clear. If someone goes in there and wants to just change their something, I don't know, substantial modification is not an objective standard in my mind. It's unclear what that means. So, so when it says that the staff.
Which section?
It's on page 2.
Oh, 2.
Permits and ASCC review.
Okay.
Oh, that's not what
Okay,
we
got
have.
it.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
It says staff to review and act on most applications. So is that a fence application or is that just a planning application? ASCC to review applications and existing fences when, and if you go to number 2, a property undergoes ASCC review and there is substantial modification to an existing residence or site improvements of the property. So I see that as being impractical because it sounds like anybody doing their 1 acre property all of a sudden is going to have to change their fences, which are existing, so I would get nervous about that personally, if I wanted to do, I don't know, I wanted to put an ADU on my property, or I wanted to change my garage or something. All of a sudden I'm going to have to change my fences and I
But
have fences. on-
ADUs don't go to ASCC.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
right.
ADUs
Yeah.
are
But I
bad.
hear what you're saying. It has to
anything
be a
inside
big
ASCC.
enough project that it goes to ASCC, which is substantial.
Creates
Yeah.
a pretty big project to have to cut in 10 feet on my property. I
Right,
wouldn't be able to do
right.
that on all, all 3 sides. I mean,
Right. Well, so should we consider grandfathering existing fences?
Yeah.
Is that what you're suggesting?
I think that would
Yeah.
be the most
Yeah.
expedient way to just grandfather existing fences. Because otherwise, how are we going to move forward?
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it won't meet the goals for wildlife, but really the wildlife is moving through areas where there are no fences. So, in a situation where you don't have an existing fence, someone's at the ACC making a new project, then this would for sure apply.
Right.
For people who have fences, it's not really
Yeah.
fair.
And as I said, like I said, we had this meeting and they said, oh yeah, we'll take our wildlife fence out. So I'm not too worried if we make this, we say grandfather existing.
Yeah, we can work on that.
We can do
but-
that. We can certainly work on that. Thank you. I think we have a comment. You have another comment, David? Oh, no.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to start with 2 meta comments. First of all, I don't think Portola Valley should be a zoo. I don't think people should move here and build like a barrier around their property and then be excited when they see critters somewhere else. We are all part of the zoo. I also think that if you want mountain lions, you need deer. So everybody's so excited that like, oh my God, we found 3 mountain lion cubs. Well, okay, if there are no deer, we're not going to have any. So I don't, I'm a big fan, as you know, of all this. And wildlife gets used to a lot of things. And then I just want to make a comment about the 16 inches. I mean, that's kind of a like national standard based on all the critters in the country or the world. The idea is that your biggest critters can still get through. Now, in our case, ironically, it's fawns for the most part, because as people have mentioned, the big deer can jump over. And as Teresa mentioned, the fawns they just aren't that smart. The predators might know to go around the fence, but fawns, they don't know that. So they're going to go under that fence or they're going to beat their head against it until you go out there and shoo them away and get them around. Now, maybe we care, maybe we don't care. Coyotes can get through way less. Mountain lions can go over. Foxes can get through a lot less. Baby foxes, I worry about. I mean, they're tiny. So I don't know if that's the right size, but if you want deer to be able to travel freely, then you need some clearance. So that's my perspective as somebody who has made a living, I don't know, studying these critters. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Dieter?
I have a comment here on the grandfathering. It's my observation, and I do not have, 150 measurements all over town, but most of the existing, the first rail that was put in when the area was subdivided, particularly in Westridge, is not 16 inches, it's less. And they're not all the same. So you can address the issue of new construction with 16 inches, but the rest of it needs to be, I think, grandfathered in, or else it's a very large job to change this, even if the rest of the fence is not changed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So that's another thing we can, right.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, are you only taking certain public comments or?
No, I do when I see a hand up.
Everyone?
Oh, is that you? The 650-400-3056?
I thought my name was on it.
Okay, Dana, please speak. I didn't see
As
it.
you talk about looking at existing fences and approving them, there must be no double fencing in this town. Anytime, most of the fawns die in double fencing. There was an adult deer stuck in a double fence last week. So no double fencing in Portola Valley ever. So you've got to deal with it, and you've got to deal with people who have cheater fencing, and that's got to be in this in a big way, because there are cheater fences all over town. So I hope you guys will deal with that at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one is code violation and the other one is code
Right.
definition.
A cheater fence by definition
The
is
code
one that
violation.
doesn't obey the rules.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what rules we make.
Yeah.
The cheater fence is not going to obey it. So I don't think that falls within the purview of what we can do, although I totally agree with Dana.
Some
But it's
people
not.
don't know that some people move into a house with cheater fences. So that should be defined by the Conservation Committee. And I think maybe in just one of your monthly gigs, did you know your front fence is not supposed to ever be higher than 4 feet?
Right. We have no enforcement authority, but clearly this should be happening in town, and it's not. And hopefully now we have a new town manager, we have a new outlook. Hopefully there will begin to be some rational and kind code enforcement.
Yeah, actually, Dana brings up a good question. Let's just kick this around for a second. So when we say we grandfather existing fences, grandfather only legal existing fences.
Hello.
Mhm.
Legal when they were built. Not legal according to our new ordinance, because then you don't need grandfathering.
Legal when they were built. Legal when they were built. So what, for example, Dana, I'm sure to some degree refers to is that in Westridge, when they start, they put in a 4-foot fence in the front. And then when they have lived there for a year and they see the deer, they put up another 2 feet. Now, that is a code violation and
Yes.
can't be grandfathered.
There's no such thing as fathering a code violation.
Right. No. I'm saying we're grandfathering fences, but that fence would not be grandfathered.
No, we're
But
grandfathering
Marianne,
by
you're not addressing the other issue, which is right now in the fencing ordinance, it allows for double fencing. It defines
We'll take
where.
that out. We said we'll
It-
take that out.
No, we didn't say we'll take it
Oh,
out.
I thought we
That
did.
was my
That's what she
proposal, and
said.
that's one of the
That's what
reasons
Judy
we're
said.
going back to subcommittee.
Thank you for clarifying, but that's what we understood, right? We're definitely, and
Yeah.
Dana has a good point. We're taking
Yeah.
that out.
We have to define it before we take it
Well, we'll
out.
define it, we have been working on it for, we'll just work another, we'll work until we get it right.
So
Uh,
the other thing to bring up, I hate to prolong this, but one of the
But
things that
please
came
do.
up in subcommittee that we didn't include, but after we had our open meeting about fence things, a resident came to me and raised the issue of there's been a difference in how side yards are treated if they're on a street. And how much of this do we adapt, do we continue that? And in addition, there are very few instances in town, but there are places where the lot is big enough that it goes through to 2 streets. So their back property line is on a street. So do we treat them as a property line on a street, or do we treat them as a back property line where it makes a difference because of the presentation of the fence to the community, to the neighbors, to the people going up and down the street, to the people who live across the way? And should we include a little more of that in this or not?
Well,
One of the things that we talked about and decided, but I didn't want us to decide here and now. I just wanted to hear from the people who hadn't been in the discussion about whether they think that's a sensible thing to do or not.
isn't that addressed by the 10 feet? The backside is 10 feet, so it doesn't really matter if there is a street or not. You have to go back 10 feet.
Right.
So what's the issue then?
The height. Well,
Well,
some of
you
it is the
started.
back. I mean, on the diagram, for example, if you look at the one that only has 3 things on it, there's this, if you're on look at the middle one, where you're talking about domestic fences. The setback, the front setbacks are all back 25 feet. And this one that's on a corner, on one street, it's back that far, but on the other one, it's not. And you can see, if you just look at the diagram, what a difference that makes in terms of what people see as they drive along. There's setback, and then suddenly not the same setback. I don't feel strongly about it. I just think it's something that, because there's been some differentiation before.
The thing is, so at the moment, we're saying side and back, no matter if there's a street or not, is a 4-foot fence property line, or it has to go
Boring.
by 10 feet. It has to go back by 10 feet.
Mhm.
So are you suggesting that if the back property line with a 1 acre parcel?
It's more the height. It's more the height. It can be 6 feet instead of just 4.
What are you asking?
It can be max
It
6
has-
feet high inside and rear yards and 4 feet in the front. So if you have a frontage along the street, should it be 4 feet like all the other ones along the street? Or do you continue it to be the exception and be 6 feet?
It has to come back 10 feet.
I understand that.
I think it's overly complicated to try to even out all of the fences in areas where we have odd side and rear yards abutting, or side and front yards, or
Well, already there's language that simply says, inside yards along streets. That applies to the opacity limits. For example, they differentiate between what you can do in the side and the back and what you can do in the front. And they say that if your side is along the street, you have to do it differently because it's along the street. So it's not a new concept. It's just like how do we apply it? How consistently do we apply it?
Well, first of all, go ahead. So Judy, there is
Well,
no,
if we're going to go back to subcommittee, we can maybe
Yeah,
chew it again
because
there.
there's no knowing that everybody has a 4-foot fence or a 6-foot. I mean, it will look whatever. It's just further back.
Okay.
We can discuss it in the subcommittee, but I think that is if we go into that direction, we make it even more stringent than what we have now.
I know we've been wanting to simplify it. I certainly get it. Yeah. Right, because they felt like it was already taken care of somehow. but-
Okay,
Okay.
so we will do another round. No more hands up. Thank you. We will eventually get there. I'm very positive that we will get there. All right. Tip of the month. Does anybody have a suggestion for the tip of the month?
Did we do trivia last time?
Yeah, I can do it again.
I think we should do it again, given how much there is in town.
I will-
think it
Yeah.
can't hurt to encourage folks to
Yeah.
be cognizant of Detrichia, star thistle,
Yeah.
both. Because
Thistle is already blooming.
And maybe
Already,
emphasize the impact on their neighbors.
yeah, and I will take different pictures. I'll take some pictures of bigger infections. Okay, I will do that.
A
And-
backup idea while I have it in mind, maybe for next month, is that we're at the end of nesting bird season. So it's a great time for people to be
Cutting.
doing their pruning.
Pruning. So let's do that next month, the
Mhm.
pruning. Yeah, that's good. All right, what's blooming? What's blooming? What's blooming? Dieter, what's blooming? Star thistle. What?
Tar weeds.
Do people have tarweed? I don't, okay, all right.
I haven't noticed it this year. Last year, there was a great bloom at the
Here was
Frog
a good one.
Pond. So it's a good
I
spot
can
for
do
people to see
tarweed.
it.
There's a lot of it in the meadow above Priory.
At the Priory?
Yeah, in the
Can
meadow.
you
above-
take some pictures for me? Sure. Okay, perfect. So we'll do that. Kudos. I had an idea and now I've had forgotten what that was. Any thoughts, Judy? Otherwise,
No, let's
okay.
skip.
All right. Committee spotlight. All right. You all got the committee spotlight in the multiple times this month. So are there any changes? I don't expect, because I've already asked everybody probably 3 times. And I thank you for adding yours. That was very nice. So if there are no changes, can we put this baby to bed? Can I hear a motion?
I move to approve the committee spotlight as written.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
Amen. All right, got that done. So the community hall, how, we don't have to address that. I already talked-
Don't do that.
No,
we
we don't have-
decided last time. It
So-
wouldn't be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's too bad that we're not online, because all I wanted to show off is the link is on the town website, and you click on that link and you put it on full screen. And for anybody who is listening, just go to the town website and enter in the search field mountain lion video. It will come up. It's on 2 different places.
Maybe I should make that maybe somehow turn that into a kudo.
Okay, put it into
And
Kudo.
you can give me the link.
I'll
and
give you the thing, yeah. And it's such a good educational video It's too bad that we can't show it because it's so impressive, but thank you for Elizabeth put it on. Student owl box. So obviously Eliza can't be here. Did you have a chance to read her article? It was in the agenda.
Yes.
Any comments? The idea is that this article is meant for the town, it's a follow-up, as we said we would do for the town newsletter. So it's the barn owl nest box positioning. Anybody, any comments to make it better, to improve on it?
I thought it looked really good.
Okay,
And the only
So-
thing I would, let's see, is in it somewhere something about maybe welcoming her as a new member of the committee? I mean, if we're going to, if this is going to go out as a sort of an announcement to the town, or should
but not in this one, not in the article.
it say, who wrote the article? Should it say
We can
written by,
certainly-
submitted by
Usually
her
we don't
name?
do that.
Okay,
That's a good question, but we have never before done that.
okay.
But we can do something independent.
So this will go in the town's weekly
Yeah.
town update.
Yeah.
And then will it disappear or will it go on to our website?
I will ask to put it on the website.
Good.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, would you please make sure that it's very clear that I'm looking at it and I didn't notice it, but I want to make sure that it is clear when this was created. So it needs to have an issue date associated with it.
Thank you.
I have one request, which is to define suitable hunting territory under item 2A. I think that could be a little bit clearer.
Suitable hunting territory. So could we just in there,
Size, it's known what kind of a size they need, right? So you put something in about size, you'd be clear about what suitable means, is that your point?
Yeah, is it open grassland? How big of an open grassland? I think that's what
Right.
it is, but it would be helpful to clarify.
Yes, I agree.
Megan, could you clarify, could you edit this part and clarify it?
Or ask Eliza to do it. She knows everything
You
about
might
all of it.
not know that.
1A. Last sentence, promising locations, include grasslands, open woodland, vineyard, orchard, and cropland, but not that.
Okay, I will give her that comment and maybe, okay, maybe she can.
Can I make a really quick comment?
Yeah.
As somebody who mentors a lot of people who study climate science and biology, they do not ever make a lot of money. So bylines are pretty big. And if you're going to apply to college or whatever, it's surprisingly useful to say, hey, look, here's a thing Portola Valley mentioned. So unless it's going to break somebody's piggy bank, I would go ahead and let her take credit for the article. And that's kind of what people get in that field for the most part, unless they get a Nobel Prize, I suppose.
I guess what we could do is for questions, and I can ask her if she wants to do that, for questions, contact. That would imply that she is the expert.
So this is to go into the town newsletter,
Right,
right?
that's why I
So we
don't want the
We
na-
don't normally.
It doesn't
I
fit.
think
No, it doesn't fit.
that's, I understand the point.
Yeah. But if we could definitely put in for, I don't know if she wants that. But we often put into an article, for questions, send an email to X or something. And that would then identify who is the expert on this article. But what do you think, Nona?
I was thinking about Dave's comment and the article in the almanac, and maybe that's something that Eliza can point to. as an alternative.
Yeah, I just think it doesn't, we can't start putting an author on, I write something and I put it into the newsletter and then next month you write something. It just doesn't make sense to make it.
It's from the Conservation
It's from the
Committee.
Well,
conservation.
it's not right now. So that was the next point I was going to make. Once Dave said that, it made me look at it again. It doesn't say anything about the Conservation Committee on this article. So I'm not sure how you're planning on having it go in the newsletter, but it seems like it should be just a follow-up or an update, if that's what you're looking to do. 'Cause I'm
Yeah,
not sure-
that is actually a very good point. I haven't really looked at the text that clearly. There is definitely going to be a heading that this is from the Conservation Committee. We always do that.
Good,
when
there
we
should
do the
be.
newsletter. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, but the committee didn't write it, right? She wrote it. And I'm a journalist also, and I don't know. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but when you write something as a journalist, you want people to see what you wrote and you want to get a byline. And if I have to pave the way with Darcy or the lawyer or whatever, I'm fine with that. But it's nuts to say it's going to be an anonymous, like some random person put up a Barnello box and look at what
No,
happened.
it says it's from the Conservation Committee. That's what it will say. It always does. It's from the committee. It's not from one person from the committee. It's from the committee.
Well, yeah, but you didn't write it.
No, somebody on the Conservation Committee wrote it.
Well, no, they didn't. At the time, I don't know. I mean, it's up to you. I think it's wrong, okay?
She
You can do
wrote it.
whatever you want. She wrote it. She should get credit. That's my perspective.
I will ask her what she wants to do.
Good point. I think he makes a good point, but
No,
we
I
sort
know
of
he
have a
makes a good
standard
point,
way of doing it
but-
and we,
Then what are we going to
Yeah,
next month?
yeah.
Nona is going to write something and then Nona's name is going to be on it. Really? Because it also means then you will see all of a sudden that it's always the same people who write stuff. And it's not really good.
I'm sorry, you said sustainability, said it's from sustainability or it said it's from you? From the,
Part of the committee, but it's that person's turn, right? So they put their name on it.
when you posted like a tip to the forum.
Okay.
But a message to the forum is a little different than something official on in the town newsletter.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Nona may not need a lot of bylines for her, CV anymore. So she may be happy to publish under the committee thing, but
I'll ask
I
her.
don't know.
I'll ask her.
It's all you get as a journalist, really.
Yeah.
You don't get paid hardly anything.
Yeah. I mean, she had complete freedom with writing and she didn't put her name under it. She could have, but I'll ask her. I'll ask her.
Okay. Great.
Okay,
Yeah, if she doesn't want her name, that's fine. But if she
Yeah.
does, God bless her, I think it should go on there.
Okay. So this will have to come back because we're writing it. All right. Moving on. So this is very quick, Jay. So as I mentioned, the town manager is supporting that we're working on this, what we call here the Rat Poison Free Portola Valley Initiative, which obviously would be an ordinance. And we might actually liaise with Woodside. We can have the same sort of text. So that brings me to the question, Nona, do you feel comfortable?
I think we need to have a sort of open-ended discussion on what it is we want to do. When we proposed in 2016 that the town council make a resolution about rodenticides in Portola Valley, that was the most we could do because the town can't do something when the state has already acted on it. And so a resolution was all the town could do. There have been a number of state level decisions since that time that have taken stronger actions. So I think we need to get some kind of advice on how far the council can actually go now in terms of what it is we would like to see as the next step.
Who who on the council knows that sort of thing?
It sounds like we need to go to the attorney, the town attorney. It's not the
Oh
town.
God,
council.
that costs money.
But yeah, we
Well-
can't go directly to her.
No, we
don't
can't
have
go to the
No.
But we can bring it up
We
with.
could ask the council. Our representative could.
Oh, we can
Right.
ask our
Advise
representative.
us.
Sure.
Okay, we ask our representative, could you look into? And then that would be great. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so,
at the
but-
same time, I think we should be having a discussion on what it is we would like to see done that hasn't been done yet.
yes.
Right,
Okay.
and we, immediately, we're going to have a table at the town picnic. We have rodenticide information. We have the little board, we have the little, handouts, et cetera. So we should maybe make that, the main focus of that table.
Yeah. The other thing, when I was talking with Darcy, because she saw, and you also, well, most of you saw the conversation on the forum about the bunnies that had been dying. And Darcy had reached out to the Humane Society to write an article, and they said they can't write an article and they don't have the knowledge or they don't want to, whatever. So then I said, let me take this back to the committee. Maybe we can write an article.
I thought someone said that there was a bunny disease, that it wasn't all rodenticides. That
Well,
there
we
was
don't know.
Viral
We don't
disease
know.
going around. So I don't think.
We wouldn't go into
any
the
of us
bunny
probably.
disease.
No, but I'm not sure any of us have the expertise to
Right.
do
I,
that.
I wouldn't support that. I agree with Judy on that one. Until you know that that is the cause of death and that it was because people were using rodenticides that are no longer approved, because I think.
Oh, yeah,
that's-
yeah. No, I'm sorry. I didn't make myself clear. I fully agree with you. No. We wouldn't be talking about the bunnies. We would just have a generic, following the owl article. Then the next month, we would have a generic article about rodenticide use and what it does.
I
And
think
have
we
done this
already created some
in
things like back
2016.
In 16,
Yeah,
right.
that's
So they just
almost
need-
10 years ago.
You don't need, right, but you don't need to start from zero again.
No.
You can work from that and just update it.
Right.
Yeah.
Who would be willing to do that?
Who wrote the first one?
I'd be willing to come to the next committee meeting with a suggestion.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
And, just as a reminder, we were going to have a follow-up evening presentation in, I think, 2020. And we had everyone lined up, including Steve Feld, who's the veterinary medicine director at Stanford, who did the autopsy on the dead mountain lion, bobcat that was found in Portola Valley, et cetera. So there is more information and there are knowledgeable people around. And if we really want to educate people, then we should think about doing that
An event.
evening presentation that
Right.
we,
Yeah.
And I
had to
think
bail on during
as
the
an
COVID.
interesting time, and it's sort of ironic because there's a lot of interest in town right now because everybody's being overrun by rats. So the push to sort of do more to get rid of them is very high in town right now. And I think probably as a result, a lot of people are wanting to cheat
Yeah.
who normally wouldn't. So, if we could make a convincing case that, these other ways work
Yeah.
as well, it would be good.
Nona, how difficult would it be to revive what we wanted to do? This event?
I think it's just lining up the people and deciding what we want to hear about, what we want to learn. I think it'd be really helpful for people to know all the bills that have been passed and put into effect since that time, maybe.
Well, so.
And
should
I
we-
think that the question people ask is, I saw a dead whatever, what do I do?
Yeah.
Who can
I
get
call?
it tested for, SCARs or whatever? There are a
So-
lot of questions people have, I think.
I wonder if the San Mateo County mosquito and vector department would be willing to come out and give a talk or whatever, because they actually come out for free. I had them come out a couple weeks ago. They'll handle the mosquito issue and look for places where mosquitoes might breed in water, but they also do, and I didn't know this until I went to that emergency fair, they also come out and will help walk around your property to see where rats and rodents might be getting into your house. And I had her come out because I've had problems with rats, like we all have.
Interesting.
And I, thought I'd sealed up everything under the sun 1,000 times, and yet they were still getting in. So she gave me some ideas for what to do. So,
Yeah, they did send someone to our first evening presentation. So that was one of the presentations that we had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and it was
they have
helpful. They're not as
brochure.
anti-rodenticide as you might think.
so should we start mulling the idea to have a fall event of what we wanted to do in 2020 on rodenticides?
I think we should have a subcommittee to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
So should we define a subcommittee right now?
Yeah, I'm happy to chair a subcommittee on it. If there are other people who are interested, I mean,
be on it?
it's a lot of work to organize
Yeah.
these things. So if someone is interested.
I'll help. I'll help.
Okay,
And maybe Eliza. We can get Eliza.
okay. Okay.
Anybody else?
I'll help with the event itself, but not the
Okay.
Okay,
substantive stuff because I don't know anything about
The
it.
ball is in your court.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so maybe for the next meeting, then, we should have a subcommittee meeting ahead of time and come with some ideas, like, should we do it jointly with Woodside? Should we,
Yeah,
whatever?
yeah,
Okay,
kick
so let's
ideas
think
around.
broadly, and if anyone has ideas, who should be invited, what we want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now the updated Conservation Committee site visit template. Did everybody have a chance to look at it? The idea was to just make it uniform so that our reports, no matter who is the lead person or who is the subcommittee, look the same, basically. To look professionally the same. Any comments?
I have a concern about having lighting in there because I don't know how to evaluate lighting. And I understand that we want to encourage night sky. I forgot what the term is, right? The second I just blanked. Dark skies. I understand that's what we want to be doing, but I personally haven't ever really gotten into looking at lighting plans because I just don't know that much about them. And I also have a concern, speaking for myself, not trying to speak for any other committee member, about attaching photos because that's not normally in my wheelhouse.
The idea of the photos is to have an inventory. If we look at the reviews, some come for second review, third review, fourth review. And if we have a photo from the first review, it is so much easier to build and see what was there. Any other comments?
I'm sort of with Teresa on the lighting because ASCC pays so much attention to it
mhm.
that that what we say is a little irrelevant and redundant. We're not going to say anything different than they are, and they're going to go even farther with it. So we're not adding much to the package. We're
Mhm.
just taking some time and yeah.
I am not a lighting expert at all, so I would be happy. I mean, I'm struggling if I have to
Yeah.
write about lighting.
There was a time, in fact, in the past, I can't remember when we were sort of asked to back off about
Mhm.
the lighting. So I'd
So
be
should
totally
we
comfortable
cross it
dropping
out?
it.
Let's cross it out. Okay.
Marianne, I also, following on the comment you just made, I think it's very useful and very helpful when we indicate that this is a second, third, fourth, 15th, 100th review of plans. Just somewhere, probably in the background part, if we can just,
Good point.
if that's feasible, just to say the project summary that this, for something like maybe the plans were initially reviewed,
Well,
blah, or.
Or
Maybe even reference
just
our
say
first account.
first, if we say first site review, and then
Right.
we make it second site review.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And refer back to the date of the first maybe so that it.
yeah, the date is on there, so we could refer
The
back.
date of the first one, if it's the second one.
Actually, the
Refer-
date has, the date should be on there. The date somehow didn't make it. The date is up top, so.
Well, normally it's the date of the report as well as the date of the site visit. That's what I do anyway. I don't know if anybody else does it that way.
I just do when the site visit happened. I mean, the report is written over several
But
days.
she's talking about previous reports, and what I'm saying is it,
Each time I do one
no.
of these, I put on mine the date that I'm issuing the report, and I also included that as part of it, the date that
that you wrote it.
that I went to the site.
So my understanding is that, sorry that it didn't make it. So the top line under site review address says date, okay? And from my understanding, the date is the date when we went to the site. I don't see what else date is relevant. When we write it, I mean, because like with the trees, you know, when we do a tree, the date of the visit
Well,
is
down at
date-
the bottom, we typically have had that, yeah, under the submitted by, it would make sense to put the
We couldn't do date.
Date could go there.
Yeah,
The date you submitted, it goes there, and the date of the visit. So up top, it should say date of visit, not just date.
site visit date.
But I was making a point
Okay.
related to what Teresa brought up about sometimes there's been a previous visit in a previous report, so it's not the first one. So that referring, so yes, you say second report, but when you're talking about in the beginning describing, you say, we previously looked at this site on March 3rd. Just so
Okay.
that people who, want to follow it back,
So
might follow
let's-
it back.
So then committee members present, others present, previous reports.
Just part of the project summary that if applicable, when you do the project summary, if applicable, you indicate previous reviews. That's
So-
all. That's all I was
Right.
asking
So
for.
the
It's
place to-
just,
The place to put that would be not here, but in the boilerplate, the fat boilerplate thing that we have that has lots of details under each one of these things. So that as you're writing it, you've got language about this and about that. So let's put it
Okay,
there.
That's
because
fine.
It makes sense that it would go in, but in this little, your template, it doesn't, it's a detail that,
No, this is a good idea. And then by having up there first site review and then second and third or 10th, that implies also that there were previous ones. Because if we are at the third one, there will be a lot of preliminary, if you want to talk about first, third, fourth, the report will get really long. Yeah, okay. Any other, these are good points. And
no.
no, that's the package. Yeah. So
we put them there if sometimes they're there when we go out.
Others
And
present.
we say that, we list them as being present.
or like say, Joe Littleman, architect, or
Anybody reading
do,
this is usually reading it in conjunction with all those other documents that have their name all over it. Plus, I think in an ideal world, we're trying to be objective, and who owns it is irrelevant.
yeah, it's totally relevant. Okay,
I would like to keep lighting as a prompt,
okay,
partly because it dovetails with our discussion of wildlife corridors. A good wildlife corridor is not lit. So I'm happy to talk to anyone about lighting. I don't do an in-depth review of it at all, but there are a few very simple things to look at. Shielding, the direction of the type of lighting, making sure it's not uplighting, and the extents of the lighting. I think those are all pretty straightforward things that we're all very capable of looking
yeah,
at.
so that makes, in terms of the wildlife corridor, that makes a lot of sense. So it wouldn't be, there are too many lights over the double doors in the atrium, we wouldn't be looking at that.
Right.
And then maybe you can give us a little tutorial or something, or, yeah, I'm happy with that. Teresa, Judy?
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Lighting as it affects the wildlife, and because that's back in our wheelhouse.
yeah, that's our wheelhouse, yeah. Okay, any other issues, something missing? All right, Then I will update it. And I'll bring it back next month and then we can agree on it. Okay. Where are we? The wildlife inventory project. I think, it's already so late.
Let's skip that.
Let's skip it. Okay, we'll talk about it next month. Open space.
The Open Space Committee submitted a letter to the Finance Committee and the Town Council expressing the committee's perspective on the revenue options for balancing the town budget.
Okay. Trails, Judy?
That would
Looking
be
at
me.
Teresa.
The one issue that I was asked to follow up on from last week's Trails and Paths meeting is about the Shady Trail Crescent at the trail entrance at Golden Hills. It needs mowing. And the question was, well, doesn't conservation do that? I said, no, but I will bring it up just to clarify that that is done by no, but who's overseeing that gets on the town's checklist? And I said, I'm not sure if that's open space, but I'll ask.
That's a good question. Nona, what do you think? You're on both committees.
Can you explain that?
When you go at the start of Shady Trail, there's kind of an open area that
Yeah.
I think is actually like a little parklet.
Yeah.
And
It belongs to the town.
it belongs to the town. So it was brought up that it needs to be mowed. It's very overgrown. And the comment was made during that meeting that, so conservation needs to take care of it. And I said, hang on. I'll bring it up and clarify, but we don't direct the town as to specifically what they mow. So I just wanted to make sure that I could
Well, there is
follow
a
up.
joint subcommittee there's a joint subcommittee between this committee and the Open Space
Right.
Committee that works with the town staff and decides on how much of the UUT revenue should go towards mowing on open space parcels, town-owned open space. So the Open Space Committee is in favor of using the 2% UUT as needed for maintenance on town-owned open space. We've been clear on that for several years
Mhm.
now.
I think
I think that's not
I
the
think the question
No,
is the oversight. Who
Who
says
will tell the
Public
town this
Works,
is
it's
mowed?
time, in the same way we do had been doing for Springdown. Who brings it to their
I think it should be
attention?
the joint subcommittee between open space and conservation, because joint subcommittee on town-owned open space maintenance.
Okay, so we should meet again.
Yeah.
okay.
That
Yeah.
sound
Good.
very slow.
Yeah, because, well, that's a piece of, that's the piece of property that was donated.
Yeah,
They
it's a
raised
piece of
money and
property.
donated that to be the open space. And so.
Why don't they just mow this when they mow the trail? Well, why don't the trail people mow it when they mow the trail?
We don't
Well,
know.
it's possible that, the last time it was cleared, it was by the Woodside Fire Protection District. So it may be that it isn't really on the town. The district, Fire Protection District took care of the fuel reduction there last time.
So let me ask you, Nona, could you clarify? Who says to the town, Springdown needs to be mowed?
So it's complicated because there's been turnover of staff and, Justin
That's
Bixby.
not my question. No, sorry. Is the joint committee involved by telling the town when?
Yes.
Okay, then that answers.
But
But that
we
has
need to
been,
go to the
that's been
town.
our,
It
I
answers
mean,
the
that's
question.
been our responsibility.
Right.
Conservation Committee's responsibility. We have been the one who's done that traditionally.
Yeah.
Did we give that over to that joint subcommittee?
Well,
Or
that's what we did last year when we met with Justin.
so they've taken over that.
No, it was the joint subcommittee that
Right, that's what I
or
mean.
not
So then-
they, but
Then
we
that
and they.
subcommittee needs to be
Yeah.
meeting on a more regular basis
I
than
mean,
to be doing that.
I think, I can't speak for open space, but if this committee prefers to handle that, I think the Open Space Committee would be willing to say, okay, well, we need to work with you on how much money that's all going to cost and how to sort of what to recommend to the council in terms of the budget for open space maintenance. But if this committee wants to do the actual coordination with Public Works Director, then that's, I
Wouldn't
think,
that make more sense in practicality?
Well, that's what traditionally had been done. I mean, ever since
that's
we,
what we
you know,
did
since
for years.
201, no, since 2019, when we did the big inventory and then we were given the responsibility of the oversight of the 5 most important places.
but
we-
not in the last 2
um,
years.
Not so, well, not so much, just because it wasn't happening. We were still trying, but it wasn't so much happening.
Well,
And
but the-
now, and actually in one of the last 2, they had mowed, but not cooperatively with the kind of oversight that we had been giving. And 2 meetings ago, remember, we voted to pull back and not do this for the next couple of years in order to save the town
Bring
money,
down.
to let it go to hell a little bit, because of the money issue.
But that recommendation came out of the joint subcommittee, not out of this committee.
We did it too.
But it came first from the
Oh,
joint
it-
subcommittee, and then we brought it here
Okay.
and to open space.
Okay, yeah. So right now, the Shady Trail Park, if you will, or the Shady Trail Open Space is kind of orphaned in the orchestration of all this because the organizational thing got designed when it didn't exist. It got donated later and created later. And so now it has to be wrapped into the system somehow. Yeah.
So maybe what would make sense is if there's someone on this committee who reaches out to open space when necessary. If we want one person or a subcommittee from this committee to do the actual contact with Public Works to organize mowing or, clearing a limb or whatever it is, and leave it up to that subcommittee or that person to contact open space? Or do you not want to
Yeah, no, if we have
coordinate
that,
it?
if we have that subcommittee, somehow I thought that subcommittee was more about the finances
Yeah.
and working out that kind
What
of
about
detail,
mowing?
Opposed to being the
Why do you need
other
a subcommittee
details.
for mowing?
Because it costs money, and where does it come from? That's what Nona's saying. That's,
And
I
when
hear
it's
you loud and
Money
clear.
issue, but the money issue can be resolved and decided. And then the mowing happens every year, and then somebody says, this month, we need to mow.
The money issue needs to be decided based on what needs to happen. And if open space doesn't know what needs to happen because no one from conservation has told them, then they can't make a recommendation on what the council should approve. So I'm just suggesting that there be some kind of communication between conservation and open space, if not a joint subcommittee.
Shouldn't it be just a policy for every year? Every year to fund this? I don't know.
There was such a thing, and then when we hit the financial straits, it all kind of fell apart. Then suddenly the way it had been being done got withdrawn, and we were having to sort of negotiate through each drawing, and then they went to open space and asked them to use fee for maintenance, and there was all of that.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that we have a subcommittee between the two, and if we traditionally conservation has been the one that was sort of doing the oversight, making, and saying, I mean, because you sit on some of those subcommittees. And I think I wasn't aware that we had given that over to the joint subcommittee.
Sure.
But it makes sense that if the money, if open space is deciding sort of item by item whether it fits, then it makes sense that we should do what we do and bring it either to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee exists for a reason. If it's there for a reason in an ongoing way, then it should.
Somebody needs to drive it and be aware of it.
Yeah, so the problem is that worked fine when the funds came out of the general
I
fund.
understand.
When the request was to take it out of the open space fund or the UUT, then the open space committee should weigh in on how much
Absolutely.
that budget
Of
should
course.
be.
We
We
That's-
don't disagree that, but this is something the joint committee could decide in the next 4 weeks. Parcel A, parcel B, parcel C, okay?
Absolutely.
And then you have it approved and you approve. That's the logistics and the money. But then to watch when this needs to be cleared, I don't think you need a joint subcommittee to watch when a small parcel like the one down needs to be cleared, if the money is cleared. You see what I'm saying?
They're saying they want to appropriate the money, they want to approve the money when they know what the task is.
Right. The
And-
task is mowing once a year, that little crescent. That's what you're talking about, no?
Well, we're talking I mean, I think we're now talking about generalities of how does it work? Because we have a subcommittee for Springdown, we have a subcommittee for Town Center. I mean, we do that
Hey,
already.
we do that.
But Nona's point is that used to come out of the general fund.
I
And
understand.
now it doesn't. So we need to go to, Open
The
space.
joint subcommittee needs to sit down and put a list together. That's the joint subcommittee. These are the parcels and this is the money we approving to be used. If you don't do that, how can we ever mow?
Well, I think,
No, we need to decide. I mean,
it's a subcommittee regardless, right? It's either a subcommittee of conservation or it's a joint subcommittee with open space, and it's pretty much the same people regardless.
I know.
It just means that both committees are weighing in.
right.
Right. So for the last 2 years, the people who met with Public Works were the joint subcommittee and said, okay, here's the schedule we would like for mowing.
Oh, was that the case? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
that's
So-
the
keep it that
case.
way.
So what I'm understanding is this particular parcel just kind of fell off, right? And so that's the issue, is just how do we help to have this particular parklet beyond the
somebody's
fee?
radar.
That's all. That was the only
It's
question.
important. So
So-
we are now making the subcommittee aware of this.
Great.
And you can take it on and then resolve it how you see fit. And then we're done with that. Thank you. But it's important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Is that all you had? And we're not discussing the site permits. We're not discussing the tree permits. We are adjourning.
I move.
Okay.
Second.
Done.
So I would assume that the next meeting is still as planned at 7 o'clock. I think this won't go that fast. Okay, let's just plan the next meeting on September 23 and I'll, in the meantime, work with town.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it went for a long while, but we had a lot to discuss.